last video. My apologies to those of you that have been waiting for the next episode, the next video to come out. Very busy and not really had time for other things. So I thought I would do a video kind of catch up, a few thoughts on some of the things that have recently been in the kind of news as far as EVs go and the Renault Zoe goes. And I'm also the last few weeks just been experimenting a little with styles of driving and thinking about range because the weather has been getting a little bit warmer. Not hugely warm. It's I want to say 12 degrees, but that's a lot better. Just a week ago it was 1 degree and sleet and everything, and we are on the what is it today, the 20th of April? So it's still pretty that's right, 21st of April in fact. So it is still pretty cold, but getting better. And you notice a big difference as far as range goes. So on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, something like that, I'd put up a picture. There's a Renault Zoe kind of owners group on Facebook, which is a very active community of Renault Zoe owners, drivers, or maybe those who are interested. So we're quite often, sharing thoughts on and experiences of driving. So I'd put up a picture because I had a really good. I had a couple of days when I was doing a lot of driving, just most of it taxiing kids around, but a lot of it was out into what's called up the river, along the River Dee side in Aberdeen. And so quite a lot of just sort of rural driving, not in any rush or anything. And I was running at a score of 100 out of 100 for I think the first kind of 100 miles or so of that charge. And then unfortunately my wife took the car to do one of the trips, and so it knocked it down to 99 out of 100. So I didn't end up with a perfect score, but I did end up with about 119 miles out of a single charge, which is not bad at all. My absolute best has been 128 and a half, at which point the battery, I actually ran out because I was trying it to see what would happen. And so for that 119 miles just the other week, the limited performance, I kind of drove it until the limited performance warning came up, and then I plugged it in after maybe doing a mile or so with that up, maybe 2 miles, 2 miles with that up. But I had quite a few comments on folks like, how do you get that kind of score? Folks that are some in the kind of 70, kind of averaging in the 70 out of 100. So this, if you don't know anything about the Renault Zoe, it gives you a score on your driving, which takes into the kind of main categories are anticipation and speed. So it's kind of thinking about, I'd love to know what the actual algorithm is, just out of interest, but it's obviously taking into account your kind of speed, how you use speed, but also how you're accelerating, and most importantly how you're stopping, how you're braking. So if you're using the brakes a lot, your anticipation score comes tumbling down for that. So it's definitely an indicator of very smooth and well kind of thought through driving, in that you're anticipating well, and if you're doing that properly, you really shouldn't need to use the brakes at all, he says, as he's stomping on the brakes at a roundabout here. So This current charge I'm on, I charged up the car at the rapid charger at an Asda nearby on Monday, and it is Thursday now. But I didn't. It didn't get 100% charge. It was at 99%, and there was no one else using the charger, and I was having my lunch, so I kind of let it sit there for maybe 50 minutes, an hour. It could even have been at 99% while it's conditioning the battery. It was going on forever, so I eventually gave up waiting and unplugged. So this charge was not at 100%, but it had a lot of time to condition the battery, so it must have been near as much there. And I'm about 25% on the battery at the moment, and I've done 96.2 miles using 17 kilowatt hours. On the range meter it says 27 miles left to go. So I'm kind of on course to better the mileage that I had a couple of weeks ago, which that should be about right, because the weather is warmer now than it was then. But I have had, I'm not at 100 out of 100, I'm at 99 out of 100. And I have some of this charge, I was at 100. If you tip from 100 to 99, it is really hard getting it back to 100. I did for about 30 miles, and then I had to go and get the kids, and I was running a bit late for getting them to an activity, so I couldn't just drive at a completely kind of eco mindset. So yeah, I'm definitely at 99 out of 100 rather than 100 out of 100 on this charge. So I'm just going for a wee jaunt, and then I suspect later today I'll be at the kind of end of this charge. Now, so as far as the driving goes, there's no real rocket science to getting a perfect score, 100 out of 100. It really is just a matter of being very gentle with acceleration, but also with your deceleration, I mean, really thinking ahead. If you're around, and a lot of this driving has been around the city for this charge, because I've just been using the car as I ordinarily would. We're on Thursday today, so it's been, all this week. And when driving around the city, being really thinking ahead for the lights coming up, and if you know that the light ahead is probably going to change red, then I'm not accelerating up to 30 miles an hour. I'm just letting the car kind of waft along, and then with the hope that it'll change to green by the time you get there. So but you have to be sensitive when you're driving like that around, if that you're being sensible and you're not completely hacking anyone off who is behind you as you're driving along. So here we are, we're on a wee country road, and I am doing about 40 miles an hour. It's quite a windy road, this one, but as you can tell by the cars behind, they would probably like to be going a little bit faster. So if on a wee road like this, if I see a spot to pull over, then I probably would, just to let any other cars, if I'm on a kind of longer run like that. So just being sensitive to other cars around if you're on a bit of a quieter drive, so you're not on a gung-ho, I'm out to beat Jensen Button kind of drive, and nice straight ahead so this guy can get past me. Yeah, so really no great rocket science there on how you do it. I usually keep the direct consumption screen up on the trip computer, which shows you and I try to keep it below, I guess as a kind of rule of thumb, below 7 kilowatts. Now sometimes when you're going up hills and what have you, you can't stick to that. You have to get a bit more oomph to get up the hill, and if you're going up a hill, again, if as long as you're not irritating people behind you too much, then I'll let the car kind of slow down a little bit as I'm going up, so you're not using, just maintaining your speed completely, because you'll gather speed back up when you come down again as the car comes back down the hill. So there we go. One of the big pieces of news that has come out just in the last few weeks has been news from Tesla and the Model 3 being launched. So yes, I'm a bit of a fan of Tesla. I like what they're doing, and I really appreciate the efforts to kind of disrupt the normal way of doing things, and in part I like it because it's forcing all the other manufacturers to think about what they're doing. And I think it was just earlier this week, the shareholders at Daimler-Benz, manufacturers of Mercedes and all, were giving the managers there a hard time because they didn't have really an answer to full battery like Tesla Model S, Model 3 equivalents in their range, or due in the next couple of years to compete with what Tesla is doing. So it's definitely something that other manufacturers are really thinking hard about, and Tesla are making them think about it, that's good. It's good to see. So of course the big news about the Model 3 is the number of people that have plonked down money to get one, which is over 300,000 orders having got in, or the deposits rather, being taken for a car. Now, of course, the deposits are not purchases. They're refundable, those deposits, but it's a nice kind of loan for Tesla to help them in gearing up for the proper full manufacture of the Model 3. And it looks like a nice car. Some interesting design choices I always like we have our Citroen Picasso that's got a windscreen that comes right up above, kind of over your head, which is lovely, and the kind of maybe not as extreme as on the Tesla Model X, but that same kind of idea. And it's similar on the 3, and in fact glass going all the way back. I guess I'm a little bit disappointed it's not where the Model S has got a tailback, a tailgate to it, that it doesn't have the similar. Maybe they'll change that as they get nearer to production to make it a bit more flexible, the car. But looks like a nice car, and if they can keep the price to where they're thinking they can, with a range of 200 odd plus miles, then that should be great. But as I say, the big news out of it was just how many people have put down money to get on the waiting list for one of these. And one of my earlier videos it's probably 2 years ago now, I was talking about Renault and some of the decisions that Renault made, and kind of the sales of the Renault in comparison to the Tesla. I think it was. I can't remember exactly. I should really go back and have a look and see what I said. But I think my kind of main point that I was talking about then was I was pondering whether Renault, in a sense, it was too early to the table with the Zoe, in that they they're producing an affordable car in a market where folks are still looking for something a bit different, because most people that are interested are going to be kind of techie folks, or they've got a particular interest, not just somebody who's looking for a car that's a bit cheaper to run and all that kind of thing. My question was whether launching an affordable car, as the Renault Zoe is at that point, was premature, whereas Tesla went about their business very differently, in that they, and I think very cleverly and exactly the right thing to do, they went for the high market first, and then they are gently ramping back down to a bigger scale but less profit margin, so that they were making more money to allow them to do more things in the early years. So one of the other things just been out recently, in fact today, I got my copy of Auto Express, which is a car magazine that I've been had a subscription to for donkey's years, many years now, and they always have a driver survey each year, and it's just out, the one for this year, and EVs do very well. So the Nissan Leaf is, oh my goodness, is it 11 or 14 or something like that number, and this is out of maybe like 150 cars or something like that. Maybe no surprise, but number one is the Tesla Model S. So that's new. I can't remember what was number one last year, but that's pretty impressive. But even more impressive, I think, is that the Renault Zoe was number two. Now that's of all cars, not just of EVs, of all cars. So now what is that? It's a survey of drivers. So drivers are giving their own feedback on their cars. So that, it's a kind of self-selecting kind of survey in that way. So it's an interesting survey. I remember, years and years ago now, Skoda used to do incredibly well. I think that Octavia won it a number of years running, and I always thought that was interesting. I mean, the Skoda Octavia was a fine car, and the kind of original, based on a Volkswagen Golf, of course, but not exactly the most interesting and brilliant car or anything like that. But it's drivers' perceptions of the car that this is kind of a monitor of. And so as far as drivers were concerned, the car was really hitting the mark for them. It was a really good car for them. And so you can't deny that feedback, but people that really enjoyed it. And I think that's again the case for the Renault Zoe. Most drivers really like the car, and once they've experienced it, really see the benefits of the car. Of course, with the Tesla Model S, it's maybe more obvious what the benefits are, but with the Renault, it's maybe a little less obvious. So interesting that it comes out so highly on that. Now, one of the things it doesn't do well on was reliability, which was quite low. I think it came 100th or 101 out of the total for that. Now, of course, I've not had any great issues with mine, but I do certainly know other folks have had some issues with their cars, and some of them have been, I don't know, maybe the issues of the car weren't actually that complicated, but there's been some kind of dealer issues that have meant it's become more complicated getting it resolved, but which is always very frustrating. So that was quite impressive. I was pleased to see that. I think last year it came 5th, the Renault Zoe, out of all the cars. So it is up. It has gained places on the big chart. Very impressive. So some folks, I'm sure, will say, oh, it's all because there's been a concerted effort by Renault Zoe drivers to boost it up. That is not the case that I'm aware of, because I'm on the different Renault Zoe forums, and I think, and I didn't fill one out this last year, but I did fill one out the previous year for Auto Express, but I'm not aware that there hasn't been any coordinated effort to do it. I just genuinely think that people that have bought a Renault Zoe, and the people that buy a Renault Zoe, apart from a few cases, I do know somebody who's got a Tesla Model S and a Zoe, but most folks are, we're in a different market to the folks that can afford to buy a Tesla Model S. So maybe our expectations are a little bit lower because we've paid a lot lower price. So when that means that some of the nice features of an EV are even more heightened, because we haven't paid an awful lot more than you would pay for an equivalent petrol or diesel car. Anyway, very interesting, and well done to Renault, because number 3 on this list was the Renault Kadjar, which is their version of the Nissan Qashqai, which apparently is a very nice car. I've never driven one myself. I've seen it at the showroom, yeah, all power to Renault for getting 2 cars in the top 3. That's pretty dang impressive, all things considered. Especially when you consider Renault were in dire straits a few years ago here in the UK, and shedding, dropping their range, not selling all cars here. So yeah, good for them. There are a couple of issues with the car at the moment. So since my last video, and neither of them are too serious or anything, or at least I hope not. The first one, I haven't actually. It was somebody had mentioned it on one of the forums, and I went on to the My Renault website, where you can log in, and there, if there are any advisories or anything like that, they'll flag up. And there was one for my car. So it's not, it isn't a recall, but I think it's a dealership advisory note. So whenever the car is in, for them to check the front wheel arch, kind of covers the interior of the wheel arch, just to make sure it isn't rubbing against some of the brake pipe work. If it has been, then they're to replace the pipe work there. So my car, I believe, is one of the cars that would be affected by this, which will be why the notice was there. But I've not had a note from the dealership or anything like that to cut like it's a recall. So I assume next time it's in for getting work done, they'll have a look at that. Now, an actual more of an issue though is that the last few months the suspension has been getting a little noisy at the front. It's the front suspension, and it feels like it's the suspension bushes. There's something getting a bit creaky there, which you really notice going over speed bumps. That's really when you. So I've not noticed any difference to the way the car is handling or anything like that. It doesn't feel. It doesn't feel loose or anything. It still feels nice and tight. But it definitely, when you're going over kind of big bumps and a speed bump where both bits of suspension are being used rather than just being one wheel, and then you really you do hear it kind of groaning and creaking away. So maybe there's a school here just up here which I regularly go into with huge speed bumps, so I'll maybe just drive in and out of that and see if you can hear it. So that is something that hasn't been getting any worse, but definitely next time the car's in for a service, I'll ask them to have a look at it. If it does start getting worse, I'll maybe get in touch with the dealership and see what can be done. On dealership, so I've been used where I bought the car and where the car's been serviced so far has been in a wee town called Brechin, which is about 40 miles south of Aberdeen. A new dealer has now opened in Aberdeen city itself. So there always used to be one here, but it had closed some time ago. But a new one has opened. So I'm not entirely sure what to do, whether I should use the Brechin one still or just use the Aberdeen one. I mean, it should be more convenient because it's actually really close to where we live, so that'd be nice and convenient, the Aberdeen one. But the service I've had at the Brechin one has been excellent, really good. So you know, it was a bit of a downside to not to use a garage that you trust and all that. So I'll maybe try it and see what like. Yes, there are some big speed bumps here. So we'll see if we go over these, whether you can hear it on the video or not. So do you know what? I didn't hear anything myself. I wonder if this is temperature dependent. Oh, there was a slight groan, but no, when I was going over them previously, there was a whole creak groan noise from the car, but nothing in comparison. So that does make me think that it is temperature dependent, and in the very cold weather we're having, the rubber bushes are there's a slight creak with the steering there, but this is way better than it was last time I drove up here, which would have just been a couple of weeks ago, when it was very noisy, because you can see these speed bumps are pretty aggressive. No, nothing. Good news. Well, I don't have to worry about that until next winter, when it'll probably start again, and then it'll be due a service anyway. So that'll be fine. Intriguing. So generally, when I'm doing a run where I'm kind of looking at the range that I'm going for, I do it in eco mode. And now some people really don't like the eco mode, even if they're trying to go for maximum range, just because of the way it feels, because it definitely affects the way the car feels, because it's recalibrating, remapping how the throttle works. Now I like it for doing this because it makes the throttle, it kind of desensitizes the throttle and makes it so that you've got basically more travel for a given amount of torque request, I guess. So you need to put your foot down harder to get the same level of torque request than you would otherwise. Now the reason I like that is you then have more travel to play with for when I'm trying to be very gentle with the throttle. It allows you to do that without worry. So here I am, no one behind me, so I don't need to be anxious about picking up speed rapidly. I'm trying to keep my direct consumption just positive, but not by much, kind of 4 kilowatts here, 3, 4, 5 in that kind of range. It is going slightly uphill here, but it's holding speed okay, and then when it levels off, if I just keep my foot in the same kind of same torque request, it will gently pick up speed, as you can see here. And I'm keeping my on your kind of map, the scale here, which shows you what your throttle position is, or what your request is for power, as low as possible. Then now there's red traffic lights in front of me here, so I'm just lifting off, letting the car slow by itself, not applying the brakes at all until I get to a speed where you're just tapping the brakes to come to a halt, and then lifting off again, just being very gentle with the throttle, trying to keep it low. Now of course there's all kinds of roadworks here in front of me, so not an awful lot happening anyway, and then just letting the car itself just gently build up the speed, and just be as sensible as possible. So now this is not, you know, point and squirt kind of shooting, what am I talking about, driving, shooting into different spots, as you might think of kind of typical city driving. But what I find is that in general, if I'm driving like this, I'm getting everywhere exactly the same time as anyone else around. And so, you know, you just come up to the lights, and a car that you're following is dashing away at the lights, and then you see them slam ahead of you, slamming on the brakes, and you just waft up to them. And so your average speed is going to be the same. It's just that you've got a lower kind of maximum speed, but you're able to keep that consistently for much longer than they are, you know, going straight up to 30-35 miles an hour, then slamming on the brakes at the next set of lights. So again, I can see the traffic stopped in front of me. I am just gently letting the car slow down. No one's going anywhere. There's a whole queue of cars in front here anyway. So basically, you can just let the car, in fact, there go the traffic lights right in front of me, turning to red just as I come to them. Yes, dear, you can cross. And in that way, you can really make a big difference to your range from the usual point and squirt kind of driving, which I have to confess is a lot more fun to do it that way, but not the best for economy. Now usually when I'm sitting at traffic, I just nudge it into neutral, because I don't keep my foot completely wedged on the brake. Sometimes the engine is still trying to push. The motor is just like the creep function, is just pushing against the brakes. Unless you brake hard, then it disconnects it. So just to save that little bit of power that it's using to pull, if you put it into neutral, then you have zero, nothing here at all, which is good. So where are we? I've done 107.2 miles. It says 16 miles of range left. Oops, wrong way, back this way. I've used 19 kilowatt hours of energy. Not too bad. Direct consumption back. What's my average? I had hang on a minute, there we go, 5.53. I had this sitting at 6, in fact I had it about 6.09 miles per kilowatt hour for probably, you know, I had about 30-40 miles on the clock, and I was keeping that average of over 6 miles per kilowatt hour, and I was thinking, yay, this is going to be really good this time round. But alas, I've had a lot of driving, just stop start, just like this. I'm doing right now, slip it into drive as the car pulls away, and again very gently pick up speed. And will the light stay green? This will be the big question as I come to them. They will not. And yes, I thought I had this to, I was going to be able to keep it to the high 5s, but alas, it's down to 5.5, which is about what I had for that last run. So I'm not entirely sure I'm going to, well, we'll see. I should go a bit further than I did before. But that's a bit disappointing. So when the weather really gets warmer, I'm going to try and make sure that's over 6. It's quite challenging. It is quite hard keeping up. And once you're in traffic, a lot of stop-start traffic, that really is the bit of a kicker. So really, the answer for getting nice, very high average miles per kilowatt hour is don't go too fast. Lots of anticipation, so that you are as much as possible certainly not braking, ideally not regenerating either, in that you just coast, and if you're needing to slow down for corners or whatever, just let the car coast by putting your foot, just balancing your foot where there's no power going to the engine, but it's not regenerating, so you're not foot off as far as it's not regenerating. And then make sure that you're driving somewhere where you're not having to do stop start, where it's all nice flowing roads. So not everyone has that facility around them, as I don't, except for on rare occasions. So anything over 5 miles per kilowatt hour, I say you're doing pretty well. That's not bad. That's over 100 miles range from the car. That's good. So when the weather's good, when I'm over 5 miles per kilowatt hour, just with kind of regular driving, I'm pretty happy with that. That's not a problem. Right, where are we? 6 kilowatts direct consumption. So I usually, a little kind of very gentle takeoff, then maybe a little bit more when it gets get you up to your speed, and then settle right off and try as much as possible to coast along here. Quite a lot. This is 30 miles an hour, the limit here. Red lights ahead, so I'm already off the throttle, anticipating that they will change to green before I get to them, but not deploying the brake at all. There they go. So I haven't lost much speed there, whereas if I'd been driving in kind of normal manic style, from those previous sets of lights, I would have torn away and then would been sitting at those red lights. But without that, I just keep on flowing, and you just go with the flow, and you actually maintain your speed through most of the time. So that's all there is to it. Another red light ahead of me, you see. So I'm already starting to slow down. Just again, not on the brake at all. It's all on the throttle, and just gently feathering the throttle. Now I'm totally off the throttle. But these lights are kind of 2-step, well, no, 3-step stage lights. So I'll definitely have to wait at these. You might notice that I have the speed limiter turned on here. I don't. It's not actually turned. I mean, it's on the facility. I'm not actually using the speed limiter. So quite a lot of folks do use the speed limiter if they're trying to be economical, and I haven't actually used the speed limiter at all on this run, but I've been kind of playing around with using it as a facility to try and keep you down. So I think, yes, in general, it's quite a good idea. Now, I tend not to like it very much because, and this is particularly when you're out on a kind of rural road, is that you don't want to be completely limited. So when you're going downhill, I do want to coast and let the car build up more speed than what you're limited to, and then you can carry that momentum over into the hills that you go around. So I prefer to use the energy in that way, rather it feels more natural than just a kind of artificial limit when you're on that kind of road. Yeah, So I just want to check the kids are here, and then I'm heading out to go and get somebody else. But where I'm at 15 miles left, 109 done. Yes. My score still 99 out of 100. It tells me. Just popped into the house to make sure everything's okay, and I head back out to go and pick up one of the other kids. And so one of the kind of downsides of doing, I don't know if there's a benefit or not, to instead of just doing one long run, of doing lots of shorter runs, which is what this battery charge is, because it's now 4th day since I charged it up, is that, I mean, every time you get in the car, so I think it was 16 miles, did it say it was on the clock when I stopped outside the house, and then 10 minutes later I get back in the car and it's down to 14, and it was 14 miles it says. So you never, it's always a bit of a wild mystery what it's gonna tell you, and if it stays the same or not. Whereas you feel like if you were driving, just kept on going, it'd be kind of a bit more consistent. But the charge level hasn't changed. It's what it's calculating about that charge level that has changed. So I should still have as many miles as I thought I would have previously. That's nice. Really letting me through. Yes. So it's not, when I did go over those speed bumps a little bit faster, maybe you might have heard from the exterior, the camera outside, there still was a little bit of a bit of a noise, a kind of grinding. It's not exactly a grinding sound, but a groaning sound, which must have been just at the extremity of the travel of the suspension as it was moving. I'm kind of intrigued myself to have a look at the video of that from the exterior, but that was taking it a little bit faster. Whereas when I was driving over them a few weeks ago, when it was much colder, no matter what speed you took them at, you were it was making one heck of a racket, certainly much more than that. So yes, intriguing. Oh, more pootering around the city. So I guess the nice thing about pootering around the city is that you're never, speed isn't so much of an issue. Actually, quite a big part of Aberdeen, it's 20 mile an hour speed limit now. This bit here is 30, but we're just soon to come into the 20 zone. So speed is never your issue. It's just all the stop starting that kills you when you're trying to go around. No matter how efficient the car is with regen. On our other car, which I know had been kind of talking about that in some of the other earlier videos. I am. Well, in fact, since those videos, Renault have launched their new Scenic, or they've introduced it anyway at Geneva Motor Show last month. I think it was last month or early April, whatever. Just the 5-seater version thus far. I don't think that, and we need a 7-seater for our family for the other car. And they are talking about doing a diesel hybrid version. But I think not a full hybrid like a Prius, but more of a mild hybrid. So it's just the batteries there just to supplement the diesel, so it won't work on pure electric as a Prius would. So that would be tempting. Unfortunately, there are still no desirable. And I have to say, this Renault looked great. The new Scenic looks superb. Lovely styling, nice interior, and something crazy like 20-inch or 21-inch standard wheels on a very odd kind of size tyre, very thin but huge diameter, a bit like the i3, not as extreme as the i3, but yeah, it's crazy. Looks great though, but I don't know if I don't know when the 7-seater is going to be launched, and I suspect it's not going to be launched with the hybrid. That'll probably come later. So at the moment, I am veering towards replacing the Citroen Picasso that we have with a Toyota Prius Plus. So it is a it would be a full hybrid, but not a plug-in hybrid. Yeah, which is not ideal. I was really hoping for something with I guess because with the exception of the kind of Nissan Leaf based van 7-seater, which the range just is not good enough for our uses. There isn't anything else that would fit. Well, there's a Tesla Model X, but at £90,000 that ain't gonna happen. So it's a bit of a toying with the actual, like, if you just take the kind of grams per kilo or grams per mile or whatever of the output of like a Prius and a kind of maybe a 1.6 diesel Grand Picasso, C4 Grand Picasso, it's about the same on paper. What I'm thinking though is that well, one, there's the complexities of the modern diesel, which are getting more and more complicated, and because a lot of our driving is based around town, it actually is ideal for a hybrid, in that you are getting that regen back with the Toyota, and we do long runs, but they're few and far between. So you'd probably make up any difference, that the benefits of having a diesel. So the Citroen, we tend to average about 40 miles per gallon with the kind of mix that we do. So I'm thinking with the Prius Plus we would be well over 50 with most of it around city. In fact, I mean, I would think probably maybe even a bit better than that. So that's not bad for a 7-seater. They are more expensive though, that's for sure, but hold their value better. Anyway, there's probably a car we'd end up keeping for a long time, so probably be money well worth spending, because, you know, primarily why am I doing it? I'm trying to do this because of climate change, basically. Trying to make the biggest difference I can for that. Anyway, yeah, there we are. Right, enough rambling from me from this bit, and I'll maybe catch up later when I've got 13 miles left. Yeah, I've got basically one full chunk on the battery, so an eighth of the battery left according to the chart, and I've still got some taxiing to do later tonight for gymnastics. It's actually the following day. I didn't get out, in fact I did go for a bit of a drive at the night, but one of my taxi runs somebody else was doing, so I didn't get to do that one. So I still I hadn't kind of run the battery down, but when I got back to the house, I think excuse me, I'd done about 118 miles, and the warning, the orange amber warning, was on the car for the battery. So when I jumped in the car this morning, it was at 7%, I think, but very rapidly, just while sitting there, the red warning came on, and it didn't give you any miles left on the range. So again, this is as I was saying previously, when you leave the car, it does seem to do some kind of recalculating of the range when you next start up, rather than if you had just kind of kept on going at the time, which is interesting. Not quite sure, what it's doing there in between. I don't know enough about the inner workings of the various algorithms on calculating that, or if the batteries are in fact doing some kind of rebalancing or something when the car is settled. I wouldn't have thought so. I would have thought it would only do that when it was plugged in, but who knows. It's fairly complicated what is going on there, or it's just overnight, of course, the temperature goes down, and so the battery will have cooled down a good what's the temperature now? 7 degrees, and it was kind of 11 or 12 yesterday, so it has cooled down a bit. Anyway, I am at I'm 119.5 miles, and I've still got a bit of battery I can see there, so I'll maybe just go until I get the limited performance and then head to the charger. I'm a mile or so away from the house at the moment, and so I'll head back in that direction. After there are a couple of things I was thinking about after what I'd said yesterday. One thing in reference to kind of discussions about what we're going to do for the other car, and whether the Toyota Prius Plus is a better environmentally sensitive motor when you need a 7-seater than a diesel Citroen Picasso. So, and a couple of things I'd kind of hadn't thought of, just was thinking this morning about them. Now, PSA, the manufacturer of Peugeot and Citroen, have just recently, in the last few weeks, kind of tried to start addressing some of the furore about emissions and CO2, and how false some of the tests are, or rather, maybe false is a bit extreme unless you're Volkswagen, but how unrealistic the tests are. And they released a whole, I think it was about 35 different cars, something like that, their real life fuel consumption figures, and one of them was the 1.6 diesel Picasso. There's one of them right behind us, actually. I can see just now, so I think the kind of figure on paper from the sort of EU tests had it at like high 60s, maybe even 70 miles per gallon. So when they released the kind of real life figures, it was about 55, something like that, which is still pretty good, has to be said, for a 7-seater compact MPV. So there is that all going on, though I did also see just in the news yesterday, I think it was, that the PSA offices have been raided, all as a part of the ongoing investigations about car manufacturers and fixing systems. So we will see what comes of that in due course. Interesting. Also, I think it was yesterday or the day before, news came out from Volkswagen in the United States that it sounds like they are going to the deal that they've done is that they're going to buy back like 500,000 cars. Holy cow, that is unbelievable. Well, it's not unbelievable. I mean, it's probably a pretty good gesture, you know, and I suspect their hand is being, you know, forced to do this. But that's big, isn't it? 500,000 cars. So all that money they've set aside to deal with the aftermath of their fixing the test results, having some dodgy software, coming home, those chickens coming home to roost. Yeah, amazing. Well, there is the barest sliver. A limited performance tag has just come up on the screen. So I think I'm just going to turn around and head back to the homestead. So I can't remember. I did this a little while ago, and I actually managed to get a fair old way. I think it was a good couple of miles, whilst with the limited performance on. But I can't remember with the time I carried on until I ran out. Now because that was so long ago now, I can't remember exactly how far I managed to get before the car actually ground to a halt. If I remember rightly, it was a good few miles. I'd have to go back and have a look at that video to have a look and see. But I am not. I'm not going until I run out today. Too much else to do without pushing the car to the charging point. Right, we must be only a mile away or so from the charging point here, and not far. And yeah, so the weather is getting a bit warmer, but still, yeah, my average has I kind of took a bit of a hit the last day or so on this charge. So I'm still hopeful when the weather gets a bit warmer. I'll give it another month or so, and I'll give this another go, and I really want to try and get it over 6 miles per kilowatt hour, my average, which I have not been able to do this time. Turning out to be quite a nice day. Temperature's gone up to 8 degrees, and you know, for me, I'm in my summer kind of gear here. 8 degrees, not very warm for most folks, but if you're in Aberdeen, this is almost as good as it gets. You start heading towards 20, and you know, you're in heat stroke territory. In fact, I have one of these Microsoft Band 2, the second version, and this is a little sensor here for UV, and I think I got this now 6 months ago, and when I was out yesterday for the very first time, it came up with a warning just saying you've received quite a lot of sunlight, just be careful. So I was like, "Way, summer's nearly here! Fantastic!" Oh dear. It's sad when you have to determine that, oh right, the sun's out by a device rather than looking out the window or going for a walk or whatever. Such is life. Oh my word, this roundabout is busy. Limited performance, of course, just doesn't give you as much, allow you as much power, so not as many kilowatts. Just to give a little bit more range. However, I'm using way below the kind of limit anyway. Just miles an hour here, and only using a few. How many? 3 usually, something like that. Well, nothing at the moment. I'm just coasting, but kind of you can cruise along usually about 30 miles an hour, kind of 3-4 kilowatts. Unless you hit some uphills, then you need to use a bit more to maintain the speed. So just one corner here and then up to the charger. Over a speed bump and not a sound. That is the weirdest thing. The weirdest thing. Well, one less thing to worry about for a little time anyway. That's got to be good. Oh yeah, heard it there. And I went straight over speed bump. I don't know if you were able to hear that. Here's another one coming up. Of course, I'm doing 20 miles an hour. Oh, that was not big enough. You've got to get both the wheels. No, but responding. All right, here at the charger. And we'll have a wee look at what the score says. Get the phone, and so I'm still on at the moment. And if I come over here, scoot through the messages, yes, limited performance warning still up there. Yeah, you see my average. Not great, and of course, because it's mostly around city, 14 miles an hour is hopeless. You'd really, I think, if you had this around about 20 or so, so your average is a bit higher. I mean, it just shows how much stop-start you have around the city. However, 124.9 miles, not bad. Not bad at all. Let's have a wee look at the over here. See my uber efficient driving. If I go to consumption over the last 15 minutes, yeah, look at that. That is called being gentle with the throttle. Used 1.4 kilowatt hours there over the last 15 minutes or so. Right, okay, I will power off. And then now my score is still going to be 99 out of 100. 22 kilowatts hours of energy used. Minimum saved. That's good. That shows your anticipation was good in that you're not regenning loads because you're slamming on the brakes. We'll call it 125 miles. Yeah, so that is the thing. Of course, it's the average consumption is the key here, and I want to get that up to 6, but not this time. I'm going to have to do a more concerted effort, clearly, to try and get it up to 6, and I suspect not continually. I need to do it in almost like in a oneer, rather than over multiple days, stopping, starting, and all of that. Of course, I have to say this. I find it quite fun trying to eke the most out of the energy, but I do not do it all of the time. I take a notion to do it, and I'll do it for a while, and then other times I just have it in normal mode and on you go. Or I should say, because it's been dry most of the time, and it's been nice weather. Even though it's been quite cold, it's been sunny, so the cabin has been warm. I've not had the heating or air conditioning on while doing this run. That would take a bit off it to do that. Anyway, that's enough of my eco warrior bit, trying to get the most out of the car. But I'm going to try it again when the weather gets a bit warmer. If we're in high teens, I think it'd be be interesting to see what extra you can get out of the car. But huge difference to the middle of the winter, though. In the middle of the winter, I reckon if you're driving gently and carefully, and you're again not stopping starting, so maybe the battery creeps up in temperature, you can get 80-90 miles, but you never could get up to over 120 miles when you're down at 0 degrees or lower. So definitely noticing a difference there. Right, enough ramblings. I'll maybe try and do another video not too distant future, so it's not such a long gap between them, and let you know how we're going. Otherwise, Zoe's doing fine. No problems with the wee thing. Time to plug in. It has finally happened to me that my blue badge is succumbing to the pox, and you can see it started peeling off. Now, I must admit I'm not too worried about this, and I probably am just, if it all comes off, leave it as the chrome underneath there. And I know some folks have had multiple badges replaced. I'm not sure I can be bothered with all that hassle. But 2 and a bit years, 19,000 miles, and I noticed it just maybe a week ago that this whole big chunk had come off there. So only a matter of time before the rest comes off, I'm sure. I've just plugged in, and we were indeed at 0% on the battery. No surprise there. And so I'm just at my trusty local charger, which is 7 kilowatts. So it's saying time remaining 3 hours 50 minutes on the counter here. One of the nice things is that this charger, which for the last year or so has had a Co-Wheels car attached to it. That's the car club here in Aberdeen, as one of the slots. That car is gone now. It was actually starting to become a bit of a problem because there are so many drivers here around this area, most of whom are in the same boat that we are in, that we can't get, we don't have off-street parking at the house, so we are kind of reliant on the public charging. There are so many more than there were 2.5 kind of years ago, that frequently you couldn't get plugged in for hours and hours and hours at a time, because there were other cars using it, and one slot was always taken up by the Co-Wheels car. So that has changed. They've moved the Co-Wheels car to another place. There is still a Co-Wheels car in the area, but it's a different place. And so this now is free for the public to use both slots, and you do frequently see both of them taken up with local cars being charged. There are a number of Outlander plug-in hybrids, Mitsubishi, a number of i3s, and occasionally see some Leafs and Zoes charging here as well. Have not yet seen a Tesla sitting here charging, but one day maybe we'll see that. I thought that was one of the Outlanders going by, but it's not. Right, still at 0. Oh, it's just ticked up to 1% in 2 minutes. So that's that. Yeah, I tell you, I've noticed charging recently. And I'm wondering if other drivers who've had their car for a long time have noticed a difference, that it seems to be taking longer doing the battery conditioning now than it used to. So I don't know if that's real or if that's imaginary in my mind. So I'd mentioned earlier in this video the charge that I embarked upon. Reminder that was a 99% charge. It wasn't a 100% charge that this 125 miles was done on. That it was sat at 99% for heading towards an hour, and hadn't tipped over to 100%. So yeah, I'm wondering, as the battery, as well, I'm now how many miles? Nearly 19,000 miles. As the battery capacity starts to drop, whether it's having to do more work, or when it doesn't ram up as fast to the maximum. I don't know. It just feels like it sometimes takes a long time. I've with the app on the phone. Oh, I haven't even talked about that, have I? There was a big update to the app a while ago, which was a disaster. It's like they released it way before they had, and it was still in kilometers only. You couldn't switch between kilometers and miles, and it's just a web wrapper. It's just basically the website created into an app, which, if it's done well, should work fine, but it was causing all kinds of problems. Anyway, if I log in Renault here, it will show you battery charge level and estimated range. Last update 22nd of April, that's now 12:07, 0%, no miles on the range. It's saying it is charging. Charge status here, charging slow. That's a bit depressing, but there you go. Anyway, sometimes that if the car is charged here, it's at night, I kind of keep an eye on it, so that just to see what level it's at, so that I can come down and unplug the car and move it in case somebody else needs to use the charger. And sometimes again, it's more than an hour. It sits at 99%, because you can watch it from here. They are, I don't know, be interested if other drivers have noticed the same thing, or if there's been some kind of change or something like that to the way it does the conditioning. Who knows? Right, I think that's enough for me waffling on. I will go and get this video edited and up, so there's something up there. Been a long time, sorry about that. But when I haven't done a video, it probably means that everything is just chuntering along fine. That's the way it goes. It's only when you're doing something a bit different generally that I make a video, or if something has happened. So that's the story. Okie dokes. See you later, folks. Bye. It's been charging. It's not fully charged yet, but 99% and 110 miles. That's quite nice to see. I've just unplugged. It was at 99%, and that's what I did. 124.9 and 110 miles there. Not bad.